Well, you know what? Today is my father's birthday. And, I remember it never dawns on me that I'm 48. Not even for a second. Here I am out with the parents from Ollie's team. I'm the oldest one. And I've never been the oldest one in the room ever. And it's starting to become more and more prevalent. And I look at all that I try to get done and all that I do for our kids. Amy and I work ourselves tirelessly, as you do. Everybody does for their kids. And I think back to when I was a kid with... now, you have to understand, everybody's family is a little bit different, the age groups. So, my brother Lloyd, and you guys will hear me mention Bobby sometimes. My brother Bobby is virtually adopted. As much brother as I've had my whole life. So, as I was growing up, there was Lloyd and Bobby who were a little bit older. There was Mark and I who were very, very close. We were 2 years apart. And then James and Curtis are, 8-10 years below us. So there was always a big gap. We played baseball together. This is before cell phones and computers and stuff, right? Many of you know what I'm talking about. Sure, when we were kids, we always would rent a Nintendo or a Genesis for the weekend, but, nobody had those when I was a kid. There wasn't money to be thrown around. We had a bike. You knew how to fix your own bike chain. We biked everywhere. We played baseball. We just did kid stuff. And, every so often, I'll have people message me and say, geez, I don't know how you and Amy do it. And, you seem to be everywhere and just working all the time. And yet you still seem to have time for your kids. I was at Ollie's baseball game yesterday. I glanced down, listened to the baseball game this afternoon, as I will this afternoon also, and he plays the second game. I'm coming back tonight after the Meadows. I'm driving to the Meadows right now, and as soon as the races are over, I'm driving back to Ontario. I'm going to watch Ollie play baseball tomorrow morning if he wins this afternoon. After that, we're driving to Scioto to race at night. Then we're going to the Poconos in Lexington. The kids are coming with me, at least the ones that are here. And even as I'm explaining it to these parents last night when we were at dinner, it seemed pretty chaotic even for me. And I see the looks on their eyes and wondering, it just sounds ridiculous. And yet somehow I'm always left feeling lazy from what my parents did when I was a kid. I remember my mom working. My dad was always doing something. He was a college professor when I was a kid, or he worked at UPEI. Holland College, I guess I should say. And then he's a sports writer. He's wrote 2 or 3 books. Raised these 6 kids at a time when, looking back on it, it was just impossible. I have no idea how they did it. None. And you try to look at how, we grew up. Back then, the kids in our neighborhood, we were in the middle of nowhere. It was free-range chickens, right? You got breakfast, supper's at 5, have a good day. It's pretty much how life was. But we always got to baseball. My dad had us up every morning in the summer to go play baseball in Charlottetown. Mark and I, we played nonstop. We were playing baseball, we were playing basketball, whatever. And then I stop and look at it. I go back and I see a lot of the people my age that I went to school with. You see the names, right? If you're a little bit older, from your neighborhood, you see the names, I went to school with that person, that person, that person. Where we grew up was a road, just a road. Kingston, Cornwall, R3 was just a stretch of country road. There might have been there's definitely wasn't 1,000 people in Kingston when I grew up. University was, people say say, oh, first kid to go to university. And there was no university because I never wanted to go to university. I knew I wanted to be a driver and a trainer. And it was only much later in life I realized how lucky I was to figure out what I wanted to be when I was a kid. So many kids go to university. And James will be the first one to admit it. Probably blew a lot of my parents' money just partying with his friends, trying to figure out. And it's, I guess, at some point when you're in university, it's as much what I don't want to do as what I want to do for life. And then, of course, that can change along the way. But never did for Mark and I. We knew what we wanted to be. Never wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor, dentist, teacher. Wanted to work in horse racing. I talk to you all the time about how when you look at my life, and for those of you who know me very, very well, my life from when I was a kid to now, it's the changes in that stream, so to speak, in that timeline, in that stream from when I was a kid to now, it's impossible that things worked out the way they did for me, in the way that they did it. We were always taught, you work harder than the people around you, you'll get noticed and you'll have an opportunity. Those very phrases are the things that I instill in my children. And they come from my father, my mother, my grandfather, grandparents, my entire family. Compete hard, work hard. But it's on
Watch out, vehicle on shoulder ahead.
It's on birthdays and it's on anniversaries and holidays. You think about these things. And today, obviously, my father's birthday. Now, I'm sure my wife, my children, his grandchildren have all called him to wish him happy birthday, but I wanted to take a minute because he's getting older now. And I said this a couple of times. Probably the saddest thing I ever heard. My father came to me one time, not that long ago, a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. And he was almost apologetic because he felt that he didn't do enough with us when we were kids. And that was the saddest thing I'd ever heard. Because I don't ever remember a time my father wasn't there, wasn't around. Well, we joke about, missing this or missing that, but that's just parent stuff. And we forget that, as a parent, you have to take time to be a human being also. And I don't know why he talked himself into thinking that maybe he could have done more, but when I look at how the McDonald household has turned out, I think he did a pretty good job. Amy and I won the Campfellow Award. James is the leading driver in the entire country of Canada 4 years running in a row. And it wasn't that long ago that his older brother Mark did the same thing 3 years in a row. I believe 3 years in a row. So, a little trip down memory lane as I drive along. I did call my father to wish him happy birthday. He's probably in the beer tent, so he didn't pick up. It's Old Home Week. What a better time could you ever have a better time than Old Home Week to have a birthday? So the big Fred is getting much older today, and man, it's hard to believe. Every so often I'll wake up and remind myself that I'm 48. I certainly did last night when I'm around everybody. They're like, oh, I'm 41. Oh, I'm 43. I'm like, wow, I'm the oldest person at this table. How did that happen? But everything that I could ever have, we talk about how much you guys do for us and do for the stable. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. But for my father, clearly he did more than he thought he did. But he most definitely did a great job raising the children, whether he believes he did or not. Because a great family, our family is always cheering for one another. You'll see people talk about how they don't talk, they're estranged from their brother or their sister. They don't talk to this person, or I'm not very close with my mom or my dad. There has never been a time where our family wasn't as tight as they could be. And that goes for Lloyd and Bobby and Curtis and James and Mark. We're all cheering for one another. We all know what it is to be brothers with one another. And that in itself was instilled by my family when I was a kid also. So very happy birthday to Big Fred. To Fred McDonald. I won't say how old he is because he'd never tell you if you asked. But he's much older than me. So, happy birthday to Big Fred. And if it's your birthday today, you're sharing it with quite a sire. Probably the leading sire in horse racing. So if you know Big Fred, if you know Fred McDonald and you're in PEI, you're at the beer tent, or you're just around, say hello. Wish him a happy birthday because he most definitely deserves it.